Today on City Beat, we'll meet some unsung heroes within the Sacramento Police Department. Find out how volunteers help patrol the streets in your neighborhood. Plus, go behind the scenes on a movie set with our Men in Blue. And if a cop is in crisis, the law enforcement chaplaincy may be the answer to their prayers. All that and more next on City Beat. Welcome to City Beat. I'm Joe Oliver. It's easy to spot a Sacramento Police Department officer. We know to look for the badge and the blue uniform or the black and white squad car. But what about those behind the scenes who support the officers day in and day out? They sometimes drive different vehicles, like this PT Cruiser. Did you know that there are many within the Sacramento Police Department who donate their time and their talents to help save you money and make your city safer? They come from all different areas of the city and take on all different tasks and assignments. Let's examine the vital role of the volunteer.
Well, the volunteers as a group, it's great to have them here working for us.
In his 31 years with the department, Sacramento Police Chief Albert Najera has worked with a lot of volunteers. While he didn't start as a volunteer, he did enter the department in an entry-level position. He served the department as one of the original community service officers and worked his way up to police officer, then detective, deputy chief, and eventually the man in charge. Najera was officially sworn in as the 43rd police chief for the Sacramento Police Department in October. Now he gets to oversee the workings of the department on a daily basis, including the contributions of those who donate their time as volunteers, reserve officers, and chaplains. Over the years, he's seen their value in personal, professional, and profitable ways. He has valuable insight in this special episode as we feature those who give of their time and talents to the department. And we'll start with the vital volunteers. Jan and Elmer McCleary have been volunteers for the Sacramento Police Department for more than 5 years.
We volunteer because volunteering is the rent you pay for your space on Earth.
Volunteering, you help not only others, but you help yourself.
They've been helping themselves and others by writing reports, doing background checks, and serving in the communications division. But recently, their lives as volunteers changed.
They said, "We got a job for you. Patrol. We like it."
The McClearys are two of a handful of individuals that serve as VIPs, volunteers in police service. You may have seen them out and about in their marked PT Cruisers.
And they're actually patrolling in the neighborhoods and helping to be our eyes and our ears in the neighborhoods.
When we're out, we get to meet the people. There's always lots of excitement. You know, we work auto accidents, we can work crime scenes. There's just tremendous amounts of things that we get to do.
And they are out there to assist the public at any time. They assist not only the public, but also our officers, doing various tasks, bringing them reports, helping them at a scene.
The VIPs may also be involved in missing persons cases.
A great example of patrol volunteers is we had an Alzheimer patient do a walk away from a shopping mall. They immediately responded to assist in searching the area, handing out flyers, and helping in the search, and she was ultimately found because of those efforts.
The next call or the next day, and you'll have a job where you're trying to find a missing 4-year-old boy, and when that mother sees her son and you've helped find that son and she gives him that embrace, and it makes the whole thing worth it.
While the VIPs do important work, they aren't the only volunteers serving the department. Overall, the Sacramento Police Department utilizes 80 volunteers.
They work in all different areas. We have volunteers that are actually fingerprinting citizens that come in to volunteer. They're working with the crime scene units, helping them in the offices in different areas.
Are you keeping it up to date?
Yeah, keep it up to date.
And they help the department out financially as well. Current research estimates that volunteers saved the police about $130,000 a year.
People say, "Well, why are you volunteering?" Well, your tax dollars aren't going in my pocket. I'm out there assisting some officer. If there's an auto accident, I'm directing traffic. that puts that officer back to doing something he needs to be doing.
We can do more with less if we have volunteers, and we have a workforce that is very supportive of working with volunteers.
The type of person the Sacramento Police Department would love to see work for them is one who has commitment, time, energy, who's willing to accept the role of a community outreach person.
I meet the best people in the world. People that want to volunteer are people with heart and dedication and a goal and positive, very positive outlooks.
But if you can't make it to the police department, there are other volunteering options closer to home.
Well, there's a variety of ways to get involved. You know, one very easy thing for people to do is to form a neighborhood watch. We can bring out a community service officer to provide advice.
The best advice I can give you is not to leave anything on your patio that you're not willing to have taken.
My job is to go out and educate the community and help them to empower themselves so that they can help reduce crime in their neighborhoods and work in conjunction with the police department.
The residents of the Point Natomas apartments started a neighborhood watch to help reduce car break-ins in the complex.
We're a family, we're a community here. I think it's important for any community to have a neighborhood program in force. This community in particular, I know that there's a lot of concerns from residents and some of the employees too. It's kind of a connection between all of us, some way for us to communicate, to get problems solved.
Any other questions?
Well, we've been running a neighborhood watch program of one form or another probably for 25 years, and we know that that program works.
Knowing that we have the program, I think gives people a sense of security.
It's all volunteer. People take the time out of their day to look out for their neighbors and report things to us. The police department is very appreciative of the different neighborhood organizations and community groups that we have in the city. Because they in fact do help us deter crime.
Along with deterring crime and saving tax dollars, there's another benefit to becoming a volunteer.
And if you're in a patrol car for 4 hours with just you, there's no family interruptions, there's nothing. You have each other to rely on. And I think it's great. It just makes us more caring of each other. We do that all the time anyway.
This is us.
This is ours. He's my best friend.
We are a team.
Volunteers provide a fiscal resource to the police department, but from my perspective, the good part is that it's an honor to have these people working for us.
Oh, I'm so proud of those volunteers. They are the absolute best people in the world. They have heart, dedication, love for their community, and they make me proud of them.
If there is one thing that I can tell you from me to you directly, is thank you.
They kind of laugh at me now because I'm always thanking them. I'm saying thank you all of the time, and it's kind of a joke to them because I say it so much, but I don't know what else to say. It's hard to articulate anything else other than that because that's all they're working for. It's just a thank you.
And it's a message the volunteers have heard loud and clear.
There's hardly ever time goes by I don't work say a major incident that either a lieutenant or a sergeant or even a beat officer say, hey, you know what, we don't know what we would have done without you. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
And at the end of a shift, we actually feel appreciated. We can come in, the officers come in, and we actually see appreciation for something we have accomplished, we've done.
Thanks and appreciation that the volunteers willingly reciprocate.
I want to thank the Sacramento Police Department for giving us this opportunity.
And I feel a tremendous amount of pride working for Sacramento Police Department. The Sacramento Police Department is probably one of the finest organizations I've ever worked for.
Along with the many volunteers who work behind the scenes at the Sacramento Police Department, there are other volunteers who take on much more public roles. Even though they're not full-time employees of the department, when reserve officers visit a locker room to put on the uniform and go out into the streets, they become very important representatives of the police force. And with a variety of assignments, they get their chances to become shining stars. Brooke Shields and Lou Diamond Phillips have each been in Hollywood for a long time. Over the years, they've co-starred with other big-name celebrities on numerous movie sets. And now they've added 2 more stars to their list. The Sacramento Police Department's own Officer John Murphy and Sergeant Jim Brown.
Well, I know you got a kiss from Brooke Shields more than once. More than once? Well, Lou, he was pretty cool. Did he kiss you too? No, he didn't kiss.
Officer Murphy and Sergeant Brown are part of the department's 22-member Reserve Officer Unit. With at least 160 hours of law enforcement training, each reserve officer helps make local events like this happen.
Currently, they're filming a movie here in Sacramento area, and reserve officers have been a part of that, providing, number one, the equipment that this movie has required, but also being in the background. And I think they do have quite a bit of fun doing that type of stuff.
Fun on the set of the TV miniseries Gone But Not Forgotten includes playing actual Sacramento police officers in the production, in addition to blocking traffic and providing security. Oh, and there was that kiss with Brooke Shields.
Great experience. Feet have not touched the ground. He was calling me days later. Exactly. Bragging rights.
The Sacramento Police Department has much to brag about, too, for the work that these officers and other reserves provide to the city.
If it wasn't for reserve officers, there would be a lot of events that would not be happening in Sacramento because the staffing of the police department would be impossible to pull that many officers off the street and have them take care of these events. I think that without us, the events might be going to other cities.
One event that stayed in Sacramento was the recent Veterans Day Parade. While Sergeant DeVries' crew directed traffic and provided crowd control, he also drove in the parade.
Car 1 is a 1954 Ford that the police department owns and uses as a community event show car. We use it in parades, and that's something that I've had the pleasure of being assigned, and it's been a lot of fun ever since. We get a lot of compliments on it.
And Sergeant DeVries and his fellow reserve officers get a lot of compliments for their work as well.
Dutch DeVries is a unique individual, and he's probably worked almost every special event in the city for the last 10 years or so. Because of that, I rely on him a great deal to supervise and manage a lot of the special events out there. He's volunteered hundreds and hundreds of hours to this police department, and I really appreciate his work and the work that other reserve sergeants and the officers that have given us.
They're providing a really valuable service for us in that they take care of a lot of those crowd control and traffic control kind of events.
One of the biggest events ever involving crowd control, this summer's USDA Ministerial Conference and Expo, also saw the reserve officers in action.
Yes, I worked that week. I put in a lot of hours on that week, guarding our facility here, making sure nothing happened.
In terms of the USDA, the reserve officers were involved in the same assignments that our regulars were assigned.
Along with sharing assignments, reserve officers share other similarities with full-time sworn personnel.
Currently, the uniform is exactly the same as the full-time officer, with the exception of the badge, which indicates that we're reserve officers.
The equipment that the reserve officers carry is exactly the same as what I'm wearing here. We issue them their primary handgun. We give them their baton, their belts.
And they also give the reserves a unique opportunity to volunteer in their community.
Generally, a reserve unit is a volunteer program. Everybody who comes to the Sacramento Police Department is required to volunteer about 8 hours per month, which is a minimum. However, there is pay associated with it, and the pay comes from third-party contracts that we have with various special events in the city.
But even in the paid situations, the reserve unit still saves departmental funds.
Yeah, the reserve program does save the department money. We're able to provide law enforcement services at a rate that's less than providing for regular police department services. These officers are trained in traffic control, and they can go out there and provide the service without the police department pulling from its resources and other units or from the patrol division. So it's a very good service.
A good service that generates a lot of good feeling within the department.
I really admire the commitment that a lot of these officers have for this department.
Even though it's just a small amount of work that I do for them, it gives me pride. It feels good to have citizens come up and say thank you.
It's been a good experience, good department to work for.
A department where reserves, whether they are working patrol transportation or special events, are celebrated and have earned their moment in the spotlight.
The 30th annual Pig Bowl Guns and Hoses football game happens January 17th at Hughes Stadium. This competition between law enforcement and the fire service benefits local charities. Tickets go on sale December 31st at Sacramento area Raley stores or call 874-8508. Visit the Guns N' Hoses website at pigbowl.com.
For many of us, a weekly visit to a house of worship is just what we need in order to enrich our lives. And while the same can be said for many of the men and women of the Sacramento Police Department, sometimes the stress and severity of their assignments leaves them in need of additional support. The Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Sacramento is available 24 hours a day to encourage sworn and non-sworn personnel of all faiths and their families in a time of personal or professional crisis. And for many, the chaplaincy provides comfort that is heaven sent.
So Lord, we ask you that you would bless each individual here today and let them know.
There's the old adage that the family that prays together stays together. Frank and Mindy Russell do a lot of praying, and they've been together for over 3 decades. For much of that time, they've been actively involved in the Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Sacramento.
Well, Frank and I have been married for 32 years. So we have been through everything together. Because we really are the best of friends, we've been able to deal with every one of those things. And I think in relationship building, there's a time when you focus on your relationship building and give and take from each other. And now together, we're able to just give to the community, give to our law enforcement.
I think that over a period of time, you would look at any profession as a calling on your life. It is a love for law enforcement. They know that we're there to support them, and we're there to give them that well done, that keep going, we appreciate you.
That's awesome.
Mindy is the senior chaplain, and Frank the deputy senior chaplain for one of the largest and most respected law enforcement chaplaincy programs in the nation. In fact, Mindy's efforts in California earned her the highest federal award one can receive for victim advocacy and a chance to meet President George W. Bush.
I was thrilled because, to me, he was very personal. It was an awesome experience.
Along with her award-winning work in Sacramento, Mindy also spent 16 days as a lead administrative chaplain at the site of the terror attacks on the World Trade Center.
It was a reality check because I've trained for years in disaster and trauma. I know how to respond. I feel very confident in what I do in chaos like that. And then getting there and never having to ask for directions because all we were told is just follow the black smoke.
She was responsible for more than 500 chaplains during her stay in New York.
It was way too much for the chaplain to hear too many stories each day. So my responsibility was to take care of them as they took care of others, to take care of about 1,500 homicide investigators, taking the reports. To be able to show God's unconditional love during that time, that was quite a privilege.
Mindy and Frank consider it a privilege to do the same for the men and women of the Sacramento Police Department.
A law enforcement chaplain is going to be investing their life in the department, the same as a missionary would invest his or her life into a foreign mission field. And one of the fundamental aspects of that is falling in love with the people that you serve.
This ground. We're very similar to what the military chaplains are. We're out there in the streets with our officers. We understand what they see, the extremes that they're involved in. So we're not there just because of the spiritual support, but many times we're there for the emotional support as well.
That emotional support is available to any law enforcement personnel, regardless of their religious affiliation. The chaplaincy is an interfaith organization.
Well, chaplains have a history of being of all faiths. And basically the word is defined as a religious leader in any faith organization. So all of our training for law enforcement chaplains and community chaplains are based around their faith and their belief system that's already in place, and now how to take that out into the community, not necessarily to share it, but to live it when they're responding in the crisis.
Their response is having an impact. For Carl McClenahan, a local law enforcement reserve officer, Mindy's comfort and prayers during a bout with cancer made a big difference near the end of his life.
When you're told that the end is near, you want somebody fast. You want somebody to talk to. especially somebody that's close to God. And because I've known Mindy so long, she's just a wonderful person, and it's just wonderful that she comes to the hospital.
In addition to their one-on-one role developing relationships with individual officers off the job, the chaplains can also help with departmental morale at the scene.
Their support of first responders is important. Their presence at a scene is such a tremendously calming factor for all of us.
Because when they're at a crime scene, when they're at a scene of a major disaster, they not only watch over the community people and how it affects them, but they watch our officers. And I don't know how we did our job before we had chaplains.
We respond on 24/7, and we are always available for anything that happens with our officers. So our office is literally in the patrol car or out in the briefing room or wherever the officers are.
We are very much a part of the response teams when there's a crisis or a personal, professional crisis in individual lives. We want to be there to be an optional support to demonstrate that we care about them.
The chaplaincy supports the police department in two distinct ways. Along with the law enforcement chaplains who minister directly to the officers, employees, and their families, a second set of chaplains also exist. They're known as community chaplains, and they assist officers at the scene of an incident by attending to the victims and the general public.
Their value really is in supporting the community and getting our community members through times of crisis.
They're up here in terms of the service they provide because they do things that the police department can't. They provide emotional aid and comfort, and they can do and say things that police officers typically are not very good at.
The chaplaincy even played a role in the recent USDA conference. Their support included meeting, greeting, and feeding the officers.
And they spent the entire 4 days of that conference with us, taking food out to the officers, taking water out to the officers. They provided some outstanding resources and probably did a little counseling occasionally there, just talking with the officers.
Our chief let the chaplains pray for their officers every briefing. But we just pray God's peace and protection over our officers and our city, and he honored that chief's wisdom. That was an awesome, supernatural experience.
The Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Sacramento is a nonprofit organization. They maintain their own funding separate from the police department.
We're not on the payroll of the departments we serve. The services we provided are provided at no cost to the individuals or the departments. We are responsible for raising our own monies.
While Mindy and Frank draw a salary from that money, the other chaplains volunteer their time.
I think it is quite a privilege to be a chaplain for the Sacramento Police Department, and we're honored to be a part of their team. And for them to embrace us as they have, it's a high honor. So what we do out in our community, we challenge people. And we say, when you hear a siren or when you see a police car, pray for that officer and pray for the chaplain, because you don't know where they've come from and you don't know where they're going, but they're doing it for you.
Their ultimate goal is to support the law enforcement community, just as they did for Carl McClenahan before he died. Just as Chief Nahara said, volunteers make a big difference to the success of the Sacramento Police Department. The numbers speak for themselves. In the first 9 months of 2003, volunteers have contributed more than 7,600 hours of their time. Their efforts have saved the department in excess of $126,000. Overall, since records have been kept, volunteers have logged more than 55,000 hours and generated a savings exceeding $910,000. During 2002, the Reserve Unit volunteered a total of 2,885 hours to the department. And also for 2002, the Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Sacramento responded to more than 1,500 incidents involving approximately 9,400 citizens. In addition, they increased their participation to more than 80 volunteer chaplains. For information on how to become a Sacramento Police Department volunteer, call 916-433-0839. If you're interested in learning more about the Reserve Officer Program, call 916-433-0708. And to contact the Law Enforcement Chaplaincy of Sacramento, dial 916-857-1801. In each edition of City Beat, we bring you what we like to call Above and Beyond. It highlights work within the Sacramento Police Department that goes beyond what might be considered the normal duties of the job, and someone outside of the department brings it to our attention. For this episode, focusing on the volunteer and community outreach within the department, we're visiting the Criminal Justice Academy at John F. Kennedy High School to find out how they're training high school students of today to become the law enforcement heroes of tomorrow.
To the Sacramento Police Department. I'm the proud father of one of the students in your John F. Kennedy High School Criminal Justice and Community Service program. My daughter Jewel is currently a senior at Kennedy High School. I like the Criminal Justice Academy because the instructors are constantly checking up on the students.
She has matured into just a very responsible student that Mr. Ikamoto and myself can leave in charge, that the other students respect.
I also like the fact that my daughter has had some of the same teachers all 4 years. Mr. Ikamoto, Mrs. Richardson, and Officer Quinn have all been able to get to know their students on a more personal level than most teachers get to know their students. These are 3 individuals that I know care about my daughter and will help keep her on the right track.
I like how we're like a family. We can always count on somebody being there, whether it's our friends or our instructors.
These students work together much more efficiently and courteously than students in the general school population. They are willing to listen to each other's ideas and comments before deciding what needs to be done. My daughter has learned valuable life skills while she's been in the Criminal Justice Academy.
In fact, she's a lot more responsible than me and a lot more organized. She's one of the stars of our program. She's highly disciplined, highly motivated. She's become a take charge person.
The most important thing that my daughter will get from the Criminal Justice Academy will be the PPRTs.
PPRT, hoorah! 1, 2, 3. Pride, respect, teamwork, hoorah!
Respectfully, Norman Adams.
This edition of City Beat has explored the vital contributions of volunteers like Brian, who work throughout the Sacramento Police Department. However they donate their time and efforts as a volunteer, a reserve officer, or as a chaplain. These men and women help keep us safe and save tax dollars. We're proud of the work they do. If you'd like more information about City Beat, the Sacramento Police Department, or how you can become a volunteer, visit the website at sacpd.org. We hope you'll join us again next time for another look behind the scenes of the capital city's police force. For City Beat, I'm Joe Oliver.